So in this video, we're going to talk about 4 phases of acquiring skills, or rather, these are 4 phases that you're going to go through as you try to pick up and learn new skills. And it's really important to understand these phases because you want to be able to understand not only where you are as it relates to whatever specific skill you're trying to learn, but how to graduate through these phases so that you could reach like a mastery level and reach this 4th phase we're going to talk about in this video. Jumping right into it, the first phase is called an unconscious incompetence. Hopefully I said it right. Unconscious incompetence. So it's kind of a phase where you don't know what you don't know. You don't really, like, let's say you're trying to get into remote closing, you're trying to become a sales rep. You don't know what you don't know about sales calls. You don't really understand what's missing. You don't know what pieces of the puzzle you need in order to be successful in that role, in order to get a job, in order to do multiple things. This can be chunked down a ton. What you need in this stage is knowledge. You need awareness. You need to go from unconscious about your incompetence to a conscious state of being when it comes to what you're incompetent at, right? So you acquire knowledge, you become aware of what it is you need to work on, what it is you need to improve. Then you move into that second stage, which is, I kind of hinted at it, conscious incompetence. So now you're conscious of it. You know exactly where you need to improve. You know what you need to get better at, but you're not good at it. The conscious piece is awareness, like active awareness. Are you actively aware or unaware of something? And then the competence piece, are you pretty much good at it? Like, are you incompetent at it or are you competent at it? Are you good at it or are you not good at it? Just to put it in super, super simple terms. So once you get that knowledge, you get that awareness, now it's like, okay, cool. I know I need to get better at framing the call. I know I need to understand how to probe and find problems and dig deep and build connections and build trust on sales calls. I know that I need to do these things. I know I'm not good at these things. Now you need to acquire the know-how of implementation, right? It's like, okay, I know the what, but how do I actually implement these things? How do I actually get good at these things? How do I build competence in these areas? And what you need is, there's lots of ways to get it, but typically people will use frameworks. People will use feedback if they work with like a coach or a mentor. People will watch videos, read books in order to learn not only the what, because they're aware of the what, but the how to implement for their specific situation. And a really good tool for this is chunking it down. So for example, if you're like, okay, I want to get into remote sales, you are super unconscious about the skills that you need to acquire to get into remote sales. You start seeing videos of it. You become, let's say you didn't even know remote sales was a thing. You watch some videos, you see some ads. Now you're aware that it is a thing. Okay, now you're like, I need to acquire skills in order to get into this. Then you learn about, taking closing calls, and you're like, okay, but how do I actually go about the call? That's where you're going to get the implementation. So you need to know the call. You need to be able to conduct the call, run a call, manage the call. But how do I actually go about that? What's the framework? Is it, and that's when you get sales scripts that show you sales scripts, sales frames to show you exactly how to go about that thing, how to implement that thing. And you get feedback from trainers, whatever resources of information that lets you know whether you're doing that thing correctly or not. And once you're able to do that for a little bit of time, you start to acquire that competence. Now you have a conscious competence. Now if you focus on it, if you're like very active in the action of doing it, you can do it well. A really good example of this is driving, right? When you're young, your parents are just driving. You're not really thinking about it. You're not really aware of like how to drive and everything like that. You get a little older, maybe you're trying to get your license. Now you're like, okay, I become aware. I want to get my license. I want to drive, but I don't really know how to drive. I know what driving is. You get in the car and you're moving it. You're pushing the wheel, maybe pressing the gas, but I don't really know exactly all the intricacies of driving, rules of the road, those kinds of things. Then you learn those things, and now you're consciously competent, which is what we're talking about here, where if I focus, like when I first started driving, it's like if I focus on the road, if I focus on putting my hand at 10 and 2, if I really pay attention, I can drive well. I'm competent. I'm a competent driver when I am locked in, right? And the last step, like to the true mastery that you want to get to after this, is an unconscious competence. And to put the driving example out there, this is where you've now acquired a level of maybe mastery or a level of skill in driving that allows you to now drive while not necessarily thinking about all the intricacies of driving. For example, many of you that have been driving for years, you probably drive with one hand, you probably have a full conversation, talk to someone while driving, probably drive while you're on the phone, probably drive while you're eating, probably drive while you're selecting music, probably drive while you're doing all types of things, probably drive while you're completely thinking about something else, probably drive, zone out, and forget the whole ride and just end up in your driveway at home, not even really consciously thinking about like all the turns you made, the stops at the red light, the stops at the stop sign. All of those things kind of just happen on autopilot because you've reached that stage of the skill of driving where you're unconsciously competent at it. And that's the stage that you want to get to in, anything that you do, especially when we're talking about sales calls. If you want to become a really good closer, you have to be in a place where, this is where you see a lot of my videos that say be fully present. You're fully present and you can do nothing else but focus on the person in front of you, because all the other things, the framework, the probing, all of those things are already a part of your wheelhouse, already a part of your tool bag as unconscious competence. So like your probing is just autopilot. The way you ask questions, your tonality, all those things are just autopilot. Everything else is autopilot. Therefore, I'm allocating 100% of my brain power to just focus on you, focus on the person in front of you, right? So I didn't explain how to get there. So back to what I was talking about before, the conscious competence piece. Before, you need feedback, you need frameworks, you need to be able to chunk down the skill into smaller skills and get, become unconsciously competent at those to make up the bigger skill. That will move you into the conscious competence stage. Now, to go from conscious competence into unconscious competence, two main things I've seen work really, really well. It's reps and varied conditions. If I were to just super simplify it, if you want to be at a place where it's muscle memory, right? Again, athletes, when you're first learning a sport, you go through these stages, right? But what do athletes at the highest level do? The way they dribble, the way they shoot, the way they, whatever sport it is, the way they swing, they're no longer thinking of the mechanics of it. They're thinking about the game, right? In high level sales reps, they're no longer thinking of the mechanics of the call, the conversations, the specifics of the questions. They're just focused on the person in front of them and how to help them, how to serve them, right? How to understand them more. When you're driving, you're not thinking about the specifics of how much to turn the wheel to safely turn right versus turning left, how heavy or how light to press on the gas. You're not thinking about those things. You're just thinking about where you're going, right? You're like, I'm going here. And sometimes you're not even thinking that if you're going somewhere familiar like home, right? So to reach this unconscious competence state, you need repetition and varied conditions. Repetition, pretty self-explanatory. You just got to do it so many times it becomes muscle memory. It's like your morning routine, your evening, whatever habits that you've built. It's become such a habit for you that you don't even have to think about it. And that just comes through doing it so many times. And then the varied condition piece comes from getting hit with multiple different angles, right? The reason why you can drive home unconsciously is because you've driven home from so many different starting locations. Like you drove home from the east, you've drove home from the west, you've drove home coming up south, you've drove home coming down north. You've driven to your house from so many different areas, so many different varied conditions, so many different times, that it's just, as soon as you get within a certain bubble of where you live, your autopilot fully kicks in. You no longer look at your GPS and you're good to go, right? Those, and if we're putting into the context, because we talk about sales here, if we're putting into context of sales reps, a lot of sales reps, they mess up or they don't reach this level of mastery because they're not able to graduate from the conscious competence because they're so focused on, like, when they do their role plays, they just do it in one way. And this is more on the role play partner, but it's also on them because they need to tell their partner to give them that variation, but they're not practicing with any degree of variability. And a lot of sales reps that get there without practicing is because they've just taken enough real live calls to get that variability. But sometimes, depending on your offer, if you don't have tons of calls every day, all day, it takes a long time to get there. And on top of that, if you do have tons of calls every day, all day, and you're not performing well, you're going to get fired before you can get to that level of skill, right? You're not going to maintain on the roll. They're not going to give you 6 months of variability and failing to finally win. Most offers won't, at least. So, you know, in your role plays, when you're practicing, when you're doing reps, don't just practice the same thing over and over and over again. You can practice the piece that you're practicing, but then the person that you're speaking to should respond in different ways, should be different prospects, should give you different looks, give you that variation. And that's going to get you so comfortable with what it is you're doing, where it doesn't matter what anyone throws at you anymore. You've seen it all. That's when you can start to graduate into that unconscious competence stage. And in order to stay there, this last piece, in order to stay in that unconscious competence stage and perform well and do well and maintain it, you need, the biggest thing you need is self-trust. You need to be able to release. You need to be able to let go of your frameworks, let go of the consciousness of the competence. Like, if you, like, overthinking is the biggest destroyer of this level of skill, right? A lot of salesers, what they do is they start to approach unconscious competence. They've done it a lot. They've got the reps. They have the variability. And then they start to overthink the process. They don't let go of it and just be present with the prospect. And it causes them to mess up, and it causes them to not be as present as they could be because they just don't trust themselves. If you can let go, trust yourself, trust that your natural response, your automatic response will be the correct response, because that's what it is. A lot of these closers, they think, and this is, again, you can tie this to any skill. A lot of people, what they think is if they let go of their framework, if they let go of thinking about specifically and trying to force remember where they are in the process, if they let that go, they're going to mess up. They don't trust where their body, where their questions, they don't trust where they will naturally go if they let go of their framework. And that's what's holding them back from the next level of mastery, the next level of that skill. So like I can say it again, the number one thing you could do is trust yourself, trust your instincts. Once you have the reps, under those varied conditions, you will succeed in it. And a lot of time trusting yourself and building more trust, and a lot of practice and reps and under varied conditions in the state of unconscious competence will breed, if there was a fifth stage, will breed true mastery. It's when you're really, really good at something and it just becomes part of who you are now. That skill is just like it's so automatic. You never have to really think about it at all. So those are kind of the 4, I guess, if you want to say 5 stages of acquiring any type of skills, or stages you're going to have to go through as you get better at certain skills. And again, I just think it's important to understand, because you can look at your own life and say, okay, what is it I'm trying to learn right now? Where am I in this process? Okay. And based on this video, what are the things I need to do to get to that next level, apply those things, and go from there. And again, this is something that can be chunked down into smaller and smaller and smaller skills. And then you can get a holistic view of what it is you need to improve on. So for example, if I'm like, okay, the skill I want to learn is conducting sales calls. Well, there's kicking off the call and framing the call with confidence and, surety. There's my conviction level. There's my ability to probe and find the problem and build trust. There's my ability to present and pitch a service in a tailored way. There's my ability to handle objections and concerns and help them overcome that. There's my ability to, I guess it's kind of with objections, but within, like, again, you can chunk it down so much. Within objections, there's my ability to handle pricing objections and value concerns. There's my ability to handle limiting belief objections and helping people kind of not let their own fears and limiting beliefs hold them back. You can chunk it down so many times within so many different things. And as you do that and then go through the 4 stages of each of those things, you'll start to see that you'll stack tons and tons of skills. I'll end it there, or else I'm just going to keep ranting, but I'll leave it there for this one. Hopefully that helps. I'll see you guys in the next video.